happy Monday. I know this is completely different than my normal schedule, but we have a very important topic that we want to push out to our listeners today. So if you are tuning in, I want to welcome you to another episode of Mavens in Manufacturing. It's the first episode of 2025, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful new year so far and everything is going great. I know that a lot of people come up with resolutions, and I will be the first to say that I failed day one on New Year's resolution. So I decided not to do any this year. Set myself up for success right off the bat. But I'm super excited. Today I have with me Emma Doyle. She and I met last year at the NTMA Engaged conference in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm missing that warm weather out there because it's a bit chilly here in Wisconsin. But Emma, hello, how are you doing today?
Well, it's very warm here in Australia at the moment. I'm in Melbourne, and it's great to be on the show. And yeah, so I'm on the other side of the world and feeling the heat of Nashville when we first met. And I will just say straight off the bat, I have to say, Megan, instead of New Year's resolutions, everybody stop doing that straight away. This is Coach M here with my best tip. Choose one word. If ready, Megan, straight away, if 2025 was the richest year of your life, what one word would you choose to govern your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, decisions, and behaviors, and commit to that word? What do you think of that?
I love that. And I actually have a word because I posted early this morning about this episode, and one of my contacts was like, intentionality seems to be a word for 2025. And I'm like, it definitely is. So mine would be intentionality, because I really need to be intentional with all of the things that I'm doing so that I don't burn out like I did last year, because I definitely burnt out. But I wish I was in Australia. I've never been there before. I'm kind of up in the air about it because I do see some videos with some of like the creatures that you have there and the animals, especially the kangaroos. Like they seem to be working out more than I do on a daily basis. So
all right, let me put that myth to bed. The kangaroos are beautiful. They are very, very gorgeous. And, you know, as long as there's not a baby to protect, which as we as humans, when we've got a baby to protect, we, of course, will do anything to protect them. But honestly, they're beautiful, beautiful creatures. The way they bound, the way they hop into things, and I love them. I love all our Australian animals. And please don't ever think we do have deadly animals, but honestly, I rarely see them. So don't let that be a reason not to make it down under.
I definitely want to come at some point in my life. And hopefully I can bring my kiddos too, because I know that they would have a blast out there. But I do want to get to you. So you do not have a typical engineering manufacturing background. You actually come from the sporting industry. So Emma, can you give us just a little bit of background of yourself and how your journey led you into the manufacturing world? Because it's not like another story I've heard. I know there's a lot of athletes out there who maybe stuck. So I think your story will be a little inspirational for them as well, because one of the groups I think we should start targeting are former athletes. So I think you'd be that great segue for them to hear your story. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for this platform. I run a podcast myself, so I know how hard it is. And so I just want to straight off the bat pay gratitude for this opportunity to share my story. So I grew up a little bit between both worlds of the UK and Australia, and I am the daughter of a scientist. So my dad has always spoke to me in ways half the time that I didn't understand what he was saying, to be quite honest. His brain is a little bit off the dial, but him and I bonded on my tennis. So I grew up playing tennis. And actually, the interesting thing about my story is my first part-time job after a paper round was actually coaching. It was a much better return on investment than working at McDonald's or being, you know, in a restaurant service industry. And so I became a coach very young. And I remember walking off the court thinking, this is the greatest job in the world. How can I do this? Like, this is what an amazing job to be a coach, to impact people, to be able to pass on knowledge, empower them. And I know that not everyone has that early epiphany, but the interesting part of the backstory is that my dad and I spent a lot of time practicing tennis together. And when we would finish practice, we would often go past his shop. He was the general manager of a coating tools company. Shout out to Sutton Tools. Okay. Titanium nitride coating on tools. So I knew all about this fake gold on the tool. And most importantly, we would walk the shop floor, and he knew everybody's name. He knew about their family. He knew they went away on the weekend. They knew that the dog was sick. And he would walk around and I would be with him. And then at the end of the year, Christmas party was always at our house. So I felt like I knew all the people that would come each year. And so I had all these great relationships. Even though I was a kid, I started just really connecting with these people who were, just such great workers. And my dad had an incredible work ethic. And so that was really something that was fascinating for me, the people management side of what he did in the factory and the way that he was able to lead. And so then my career went into exactly entrepreneurship. So I've run a number of businesses, a number of large organizations in sport, predominantly tennis. And then I represented my country 20 times as a high performance tennis coach. Leading athletes all over the world. I've traveled to just about every country you can imagine. Often it was about just tennis courts and hotels, but I always tried to make sure that we did half a day of sightseeing or to at least experience some part of wherever we were in the world. And then fast forward to a career in speaking, and I found myself at the zoo in Denver, Colorado. And I happened to sit next to a woman who was a general manager of a manufacturing company. And I just published my book. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about what makes a great coach. Yeah. And she said, that's amazing. Would you come into my company and show me what this coaching culture is all about? And at first I was like, sure, manufacturing. I was ringing my dad going, all right, full circle. This is a little weird. And then I went in there and I was like, okay, now I'm understanding why I'm here, because beautiful technical leaders and super smart engineers and are now in charge of people. And even though I didn't quite understand the robot that makes the iron sheet that goes inside a stomach during surgery, right? I didn't have the ins and outs of that knowledge. I did have the knowledge to say, I think I can make a difference here in the way that manufacturing has traditionally been led with regards to people. And so it feels a little full circle. And really shout out to Christina Collette, because she really did open the door for me to meet a number of people, talk about women promoting women and talk about a maven of manufacturing. She introduced me to the NTMA, and then I've spoke at the Rocky Mountain Conference, the local chapters. I play in the golf events. I go to the networking events. And so I've just really immersed myself in it, and I've really, really loved it. So that's a little bit of background.
That's interesting too, because one of the things that I've learned over these conversations from some of the women that I've talked to is they would have complaints about, we never got asked initially to some of these events that our guy counterparts were going to, like golf outings and stuff. And there has been, like, if you're familiar with The Office, the TV series The Office, there have been like jokes around like the sport talk that guys will use analogies of for their business and sales things. And one of the top conversations around it, if it's not the weather, it's something about a sport team or a sport that they talk about to bring commonality. So it's just interesting to see the crossover from your perspective. But, what sort of challenges were you seeing with some of the companies that you were working with, specifically with their leadership? Because I know there's a shift happening, and there's a lot of conversation around company culture, because if you work with a company that has a terrible company culture, your employees are not going to be as productive. They're not going to love their job. Your retention rates are going to be low. So there is this push, to enhance company culture, but it has to start with leadership. So what were some of the challenges that you were seeing when you were entering some of these manufacturing facilities specific to their leadership and how they were running their teams?
Yeah. So some of the biggest challenges that come up time and time again relate, you hit the nail on the head, talent and talent management, talent retention, talent recruitment. And I know no other. I've spent my entire life in talent. Funny side note, like one of the first talent identification things I went to with regards to sport, they said if the ring finger is longer than the index finger, then they're exposed to more testosterone during the 9 months being in the womb. And so therefore that child was, I know. I hope that everyone's doing a quick finger test right now. But there's not a lot of evidence to support that. So on the surface, and I share that to say, on the surface of what they think is a deficit in talent, which is true, once I get beyond the surface level within these companies, what I'm finding is that it's often a lack of understanding people. And now it's not anyone's fault. It's just the fact that these technical leaders have been promoted because of their wonderful intelligence, and now they're in charge of people. And they're really, the most exciting thing, I think, Megan, is I feel like they're coming from a blank canvas, like ground zero. When often I'll go in and I'll talk, I'm doing communication 101. So a lot of the times it's how do we keep talent in the workplace is knowing somebody's story, knowing their purpose, knowing what motivates them. Why are they in manufacturing in the first place? What is their backstory? As that's your first question you asked of me. So I think that is something that is really important, that yes, there's a deficit in talent, but how do we think outside the square to be able to find the talent? And then once we've got them, what do we do to keep them? Because the old traditional approach is give them more money. Now, that might be the case in certain situations, but so often these days, especially we look at different generations in the workplace, we've got 5 different generations, especially in manufacturing, sitting side by side for the first time ever. And money isn't necessarily that key driver. Yes, it's important, but also there are things like values. Is there a values alignment? Just a quick shout out to another company that I've been working with. They've been in business for 40 years. We just did their values. We just came up with the Rubik's Cube. Their acronym is SOLVE. It's so cool, actually. And I asked if I could share it, and they said yes. So this is for Acu Precision in Colorado. So the SOLVE, so self-improvement's the first value. The O is outstanding attention to detail. L is lead with integrity. V is value teamwork, and E is empowering communication. So that's as voted by their company. So how cool is that, right? So again, this company, what was their biggest challenge is that the values weren't there. So there wasn't the connection to actually to help people feel like they belong. So values, and then of course behaviors. The behaviors then drive the values are so critical, because you can have the Rubik's Cube on the wall, and got little Rubik's Cube keychains, and it was such a cool process to unpack their values for this awesome company that really hadn't prioritized leadership training. And I think that's a real shift that we're going to be seeing in manufacturing. So to summarize the challenges, I'd say definitely communication, talent, and performance under pressure, because manufacturers are continuously under time pressure. So they're the 3 biggest ones.
So I guess my question is too, because I have the belief, because I've come across some really horrible ones. I don't think everyone can be a coach, and I don't think everyone is coachable. Like, some people just don't like falling, and this is just through my own personal experience of what I observed. Do you have a different perspective on that? Like, can everyone get to a level of coaching? Because within a manufacturing facility, it's not just the C-suite top level that's going to be coaches, like they also depend on their middle management. And then you also have your floor management with your, some of them are called supervisors or leads. Floor leads is one of the terms that we use. Like they have to be able to get people hyped up. I worked in a distribution center and it would get extremely hot in summer days. And it was always the leads that got us like excited to come in and work in this hot, horrible weather. But it was the energy that they were giving off that really projected onto us. And then that helped us get through the day. So what's your opinion on everyone can or can't be a coach? Because I don't feel like they can be.
Yeah, I hear you, and this is why you run the show, and this is why different perspectives are healthy. The first thing I want to do is just define what is coaching. So
Okay.
a lot of the time, people think, even when I come into a business, that I'm still a sports coach, right? And I'm there to run the plays, and they think sports coaching is just, they see somebody yelling into a microphone, right, and etc. Now that is not what I do. So let's define what coaching is. Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. So I'll just say that one more time. This is a definition by Sir John Whitmore, arguably the godfather of business coaching. Coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximize their own performance. In other words, what is my 2 key skills as a coach? 1, I have to be a great listener. And 2, I have to ask curious questions. So if you think about that as just a simplistic definition of coaching and what I empower my frontline managers, my middle level managers, and my senior leaders at the different levels, I'm inviting them to ask questions. Do I believe that people can ask curious questions, open-ended questions? Yes. If they have the tools, if they have the strategies, if they have the techniques. So for example, you could say to somebody, tell me more. And what else? That's an open-ended question. That's all you need to say. Remember, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Most people like talking about themselves. Not everyone, but you can see there that even somebody who is on the shop floor can ask a question beyond how's the weather or did your favorite sports team win on the weekend, right? Mm-hmm. So are there different levels of coaching? Yes. Do I believe that everyone can get to a high performance level? Yes. Do I believe everyone wants to get to a high performance level? No. If they're happy learning basic coaching skills and working, just rocking up, doing their job and empowering the 2 other people they work with, and there's a beautiful gel happening with that small team, brilliant. I've done my job. Do I believe that we should strive to high performance? I know no other. I've represented my country. I'm a former athlete. So we're always looking for 1% principles. It's even the way we start this episode. What's that one word for the year that's going to govern, your thoughts and feelings? And it has to be transformed from last year. I can't have the same word as last year because I'm a high performance athlete. I'm a high performance coach. So do I want my senior leaders, for want of a better word, not senior as in age, but people who are in the company, to bring the energy, like you said, to bring the high performance, to bring the performance under pressure, for sure. So it was a bit of a cryptic answer.
Well, how do you approach that high performance coaching then to really energize teams within the manufacturing industry? Because yes, there are advances in technology that are making it more modern and clean and sleek, and like the facilities of today's manufacturing look really different from, our grandfathers and our fathers' manufacturing, but there's still those places that are dirty, dull, dangerous, and dark. There are still aspects of engineering and manufacturing that aren't very exciting for a lot of people. So how do you approach that high performance coaching to really energize teams?
Well, it all begins with understanding the motivation. I mentioned that earlier. If you don't understand someone's story and you don't understand their purpose, then how are you ever going to provide an environment for them to, remember, unlock the potential that lives within them? Because talent does live within all of us. So which button you need to press when is really important as it relates to certain situations that are going to help people make better decisions. I know that sounds really simplistic, but it is really the answer. If you are curious, for example, which is one of the practices within the Emerging Leaders program, within one of the practices within my book, then you'll be able to unpack what's important to somebody. And if it is important that the person picks up their son or daughter from school every day, and they need to knock off at 2-3 o'clock so that they can do that, that's potentially what is their driver. And if you know what people's drivers are and why they are there, and you are super curious about every single person in your team, then this is how you begin to unlock high performance. And how I specifically do that is giving people, again, practical tools, practical strategies. For example, with another company, manufacturing company in Colorado, we went in and we taught them the GROW model, which is simply, what's your goal? What's your reality? What are the options? What's the way forward? They now use that to coach their people, to have performance conversations, to have feedback conversations. What's the goal of this feedback conversation? We need to talk about your time management. Okay, what's your reality? All right, well, here are the stats on your time management. What are the options? How can we generate options together, not just top-down traditional manufacturing approach? The boss says I need to do this better with my time management. No, how do we collaboratively come up with it? And the W is way forward. So how can then they own time management so they actually become accountable and make a difference in their own life? Because they'll feel more empowered and take more ownership and accountability, which is a huge thing in manufacturing. And I know a lot of CEOs that come up to me, we just want to get our people more motivated. Well, you can't make someone motivated. You can't make someone engaged. All you can do is provide an environment for them to choose to want to be motivated and engaged. And how do you do that? You got to know your people.
It sounds like, too, that a lot of the motivation and stuff will come from mindset as well. Because, like, if people are having a bad day because of outside things going on, it really can affect your mindset. And if you have a negative mindset, you're not going to perform as great, right? Like, so how have you seen mindset really influence performance and innovation in manufacturing settings? And what sort of tools or like guidelines or practices do you provide some manufacturers to really help change that negative mindset in some cultures?
Well, I'm going to be a little controversial again. I hope that's okay. In the fact that we have 65,000 thoughts a day and 80% of those are negative. 90% of them we thought about them yesterday. So we're on the hamster wheel where we're thinking negative. So can you shift somebody into having a positive mindset? So I don't believe you can. So what I do believe is what I do with mindset is I reverse engineer it, especially in manufacturing. And what I mean by that is if you change the behavior first, guess what? They're going to enjoy their job more. They're going to have a better mindset. They're going to get better feedback. You're going to get a better performance review. They may even get a raise. And then that's going to affect their mindset. But most people go wrong in trying to fix the mindset or trying to, remember what I said earlier, you can't make someone motivated. All you can do is provide an environment for them to choose to be motivated. And if you change behavior first, that impacts mindset. Now, some people naturally have a positive mindset. I am one of those people. So I do, because I've been an entrepreneur all my life, and I do believe that the glass is half full. And when someone tells me I can't do it, I seek out how I can do it. But that's less than 5% of the population. Like, even when I represented my country, I only ever met basically 3 girls, that's 1 every 10 years, where I said, you have to step up and win for Australia today. If you focus on that pure finite energy, people will crumple. People will, they'll fall apart. If you're putting demands on somebody, hey, this isn't good enough, you need to be doing this, and this, often that person will quit. It's too much. They're already overwhelmed with everything going on, from cost of groceries or whatever's going on at home. So when they come to work, they're using that as an escape. They're already in that negative mindset. So the best thing that you can do, the best tool that I have, is focus on behavioral shifts. So for example, when I ran the National Tooling and Machining Association Emerging Leaders program, every month we used gamification to change behavior. So it wasn't just come and learn about decision making. It was, you're going to get 15 points if we did tennis scoring, because half of them didn't even know tennis, but it was my cute way of connecting with them on my chapter 1 of my life. But 15 points if you implemented a decision-making tool, 30 points if you spoke to 5 of your employees and asked them about how they make decisions, 40 points if you then read the practice on decision-making in my book and completed the questions, you won the game. So it was a 9-month program, as you know, and they had a minimum of, they had to win 6 games. That was I said that straight off. My expectations, you have to win a minimum of 6 games. So I'm forcing behavioral change, or let me reframe that. I'm inviting behavioral change. And then if they did it, which each week, everybody got at least 1 point. So that is a behavioral change, because they're acting on coaching tools to empower their people. So I'll pause there.
Because that's interesting that you said gamification, because there are some platforms out there that are kind of adapting that same strategy, because this younger generation specifically is so technology literate. And I was at a trade show and they had me do digital instructions at one of the demos at one of the booths. And one of the guys from the company was like, yeah, we just had a kid come in from Gen Z. And he's like, oh, this is like gamification of manufacturing. Like, this is really easy. And the kid did it no problem because he's used to that kind of environment. So it's just interesting that you said that, because I feel like that is a newer trend that's coming now with manufacturing in terms of training and upskilling that next generation, because they're so used to being at their iPads and playing video and computer games. And now that's relatable to them and they enjoy it. So if they come in and work, they're not going to do that. So are there any like other strategies outside of gamification that you have seen or are using to really cultivate that growth mindset among manufacturing professionals?
I have probably, I don't know, a million. It feels like a million different tools. For example, with the emerging leaders, we gave them like a little toolkit, put all the tools on a little tool belt thing, keychain. But the one that maybe your listeners might appreciate, because sometimes this is a generalization, I hate making assumptions. Sometimes some manufacturers can be procrastinators. So one of my favorite tools is called the hammer. Okay. And the hammer is a tool that you use as a coach when somebody is stuck or somebody's not getting out of their own way, or somebody is like still not executing on one of the new ideas on the shop floor, right? So what you do, the hammer is called the WDEP, which stands for 4 quick questions. Remember, what's a great coach? Ask curious questions. So the W is, so Megan, what is it that you want? And the D is, what are you doing about it? The E is, and how's that working for you? So you're evaluating. And then P is plan. So how do you plan to proceed? So it's a short, sharp tool. That's why it's called the hammer. Doesn't take very long. I asked you 4 quick questions to help you get off the couch, take action, because I know no other. Talent is not nearly as important as execution, my friend. Let me tell everybody, I passionately believe in that sentence alone. Talent is not nearly as important as execution. So important that we get off the couch, we get off the hiding behind the machine, because we don't want to talk to anyone. We got to get in there and we got to roll our sleeves up, because if we can work together, we can take the diversity of different opinions and then take action on these ideas of improvement for the business, for yourself. That's a great example of a tool that I use all the time with manufacturing.
I think I'm going to probably email you on that as well too, because so one of the things that's getting talked about a lot now among manufacturers, neurodivergent individuals, and this is a topic that I really love because I just found out that I'm ADHD, like my younger son, and I'm pretty sure all my kids have some sort of neurodivergency, but the reason why I found out is because my youngest was showing signs of it. And his therapist is like, well, it's genetic. So it comes directly from a parent. And she's like, you are showing signs of it. And I was like, no, I'm not. And she's like, you are. So she did an assessment on me and I have it. So I guess my question for you, is there like differences in some of these strategies that you're teaching manufacturing leaders that apply to more neurodivergent individuals? Because the 4 questions that you just asked, that would be really helpful for me because it gives me that sharp focus and it would get me motivated to move off the couch. And, you know, sometimes with my son, I do have to like reword things a certain way. So it's not coming across as like telling him to do something, but more like challenging him to do it. So like if I present it as a challenge, he'll be like, I got this, I can do it, no problem. But if I were to be like, you need to do this, he'd be like, no, because it's boring to him. But if I present it as a challenge, he's then like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to do it faster than you and better than you. And then he's all about it. So do you see that within your coaching style or conversations?
100%. 100%. So one of the things, again, in the Emerging Leaders program, when we meet in person, that's when we do the communication unit. So we look at all different styles of communication and we don't put people in a box. However, what we do ask managers and leaders is, how do you adapt who you are to bring out the best in that example, for example, with your son that you just gave. So that was a great example in relation to what comes naturally to you, which might be, hey, get this done. You're having to adapt your communication style because you know that that's what is going to work for him in that moment. So what we do when we're in person is we go through behavioral styles. We go through the 4 learning preferences. Then we take into account generational differences. And then that's a melting pot of then a leader to be able to then ask some key questions based on who's in front of them so that then they can adapt their style. Because with some people, my energy can be too much, right? I need to soften my tone. I need to slow down. I need to pause. I can't tell you, I didn't know any of this though. Let's be honest. Like when I was a tennis coach, I was a subject matter expert. This is why I can really relate as well to people that are technical experts. I have a lot of knowledge about the biomechanics, for example, of the serve, right? And I love to tell everybody, this is chapter 1. This is chapter 1 where I thought that that's what made a good coach. Then I realized when I got off the tennis court, when I studied business coaching, emotional intelligence, neuro-linguistic programming, I threw myself into people management. I thought I was going to have a complete career change. What it taught me is that it doesn't matter what career I'm in or what industry I'm in. The secret sauce is for me to keep my authentic leadership style and adapt depending on who's in front of me. Who am I leading? And what is going to resonate with them?
That's where those curious questions come in, and really knowing their backstory. And it's interesting that you say that, because I do CrossFit. Like, I love it. And we have several different coaches, and each of them have their different coaching styles. And Scott, who owns the gym, he's really great at pulling people together and getting people to work as teams and groups, especially for like group workouts. But then there's an older gentleman named Mike, and every time he and I are working out, he's coaching me. He like knows that I get more energy from like any pent up anger or negative. So he's just like, just picture that one face you can't stand. And he's like, just show him one more rep. So it's interesting to see how, and I've also seen him coach other individuals that don't like that kind of coaching style. So it's really cool to see that they are able to adapt to that kind of thing. And I just feel like that's important within the manufacturing environment, because there's so many different personalities, and not everybody likes to be talked to a certain way. Like, they just don't know how to work if they're told a certain way, like you've mentioned before. So I think that's a really good comparison. I do want to get into the emerging leaders real quick, but I just noticed that we have comments. And I was so involved in our conversation that I forgot to look at the comments. But David Turner said, love that definition. I believe he was talking about the coaching definition that you provided way at the beginning of the conversation. And then Christina, the power of curious questions is so impactful. I love that too, as a storyteller, as a content creator. That's how I get engineers to talk. I'm just so curious about how they put things together and how they design things. And then they get into teaching mode, which is really fun if you're talking to engineers. And then Liz said, love the points idea. Thank you for sharing. So to all of you commenting, thank you so much. If you have questions for Emma, please drop them in. We are going to start talking about the emerging leaders now from the NTMA. So can you just give us some backstory of what the emerging leaders program is, how it got started, and then how you got involved with it?
Yeah, would love to. Thank you for that opportunity. So back to thank you for Christina Collette being on the line there, because again, she introduced me to Roger from the NTMA and Kristen. And I was asked to run the Emerging Leaders 2 program, which was to complement the already wonderful program that Mike and Dave had been running, the Emerging Leaders 1. So that was really a wonderful program, giving an overview of leadership in manufacturing. And so then I sort of took that, built on that program in relation to taking a pure coaching lens cap, which is what I do. I'm not here to teach lean manufacturing. I'm here to teach the skills that I do best, which is, of course, leader as coach is the way of the future. I passionately believe it's even the way of now. And so it had 3 core components. It had confidence, being dynamic, and being able to transform not only yourself and also that of the people who you lead. So they were the 3 core components. And then it's made up of the 9 modules, such as many of the things we've already spoken about. Resiliency is a big one. How do we think about the trampoline? How do we bounce back? Rather than just run into a brick wall and bash our heads against the brick wall. Instead of doing that, how do we learn tools around resiliency? We come up with their purpose statement and all sorts of other wonderful techniques. As I said, they've got a full toolkit at the end of it that they can walk away with. We gamify it, and it's just been a wonderful, wonderful. But don't just take it from me. I actually pulled up one testimonial I wanted to read out, if I can.
Yeah, I'm going to share the link that you shared with me, because for some reason the comment isn't going on LinkedIn, but it did go on Facebook and YouTube and Twitch. But here's the link to what Emma's talking about that will go to the Emerging Leaders page, and then you can register for there. And then it actually breaks down what each course is. So be sure to check that out, and I will have that in my show notes too coming up. But when's the deadline, Emma? To sign up?
Well, it does start next month. So it is the first Wednesday of every month.
So hurry up and sign up.
I know. I did find out the deadline today, and I was like, I'm not saying that on the podcast because that's. But we do have a cutoff date. And let me tell you, it is within the next week or two. So
just sign up.
Just sign up. The program is around the corner. And here's some of the things that some of the other people said about the program. Like literally, this is a quote. This leadership program has changed my life personally and in business. The interaction is amazing. Breakout rooms were great. You really get to know everybody that you're in the room with. It's one of the best things I've done in my 35 years on this earth, and Coach M is a big part of that. So that was very sweet. And then this one, another one, the Emerging Leaders program led by Coach M has taught me how to be a true leader, one who effectively communicates, makes well-analyzed, strong decisions with confidence, and encourages the growth of others to find leaders hidden inside of themselves. So that there's so many here I could have read out, but again, don't just take my word for it. That's actually what the Emerging Leaders from the 2024 cohort said. I'm wearing my beautiful little, look at this, they gave me a little Coach M dog tag. Thank you, Stacey. I love it.
That's
I wear it all the
awesome.
time, my Emerging Leaders dog tag. And she gave every participant one of those. It was such an awesome idea. And I really look forward to running it again. And also just quickly on a total side note, I'm very passionate about supporting women in manufacturing too. I mean, I know that in our tennis industry, we had about 25% women as in the coaching field. And the latest research I read this morning was 30%. So I don't know whether you've got if that sounds about right, but that's, when I did a Google search this morning, that's where it's at. So I really believe that this course is about those three core components, helping in the dynamic pace of manufacturing, helping with confidence and transformation. And it really is a special program. And I just loved last year, and fingers crossed, I can't wait to run it again this year.
Well, what's interesting about that statistic, it's kind of misleading because it takes the overall representation of everybody in engineering, manufacturing, but when you break it down in specific fields and industry, it actually becomes less. So depending on like CNC machinists, I think is between 10 and 11% women. That might even be too high. Welding, there's an increase in welders. Like everywhere I go, I'm hearing more and more about women welders. Engineers globally only represent 13%. That's all over the world. And that's kind of staying stagnant. So that was another question I wanted to ask you about the Emerging Leaders program. So when I think emerging leaders, sometimes the assumption is made that it's younger generations of leaders. Now, is there like guidelines of who can apply for this or sign up for this type of program? Like, do they have to be in a specific industry? Do they have to be a certain age of generation? Do they have to have a certain level of experience as a leadership role? Like what are the guidelines?
That is a great question. And certainly Kristen would be able to answer anything specific, but the way that I've designed it, an emerging leader is exactly that. Anyone who's passionate about being a leader, I don't care how old you are, if you have the mindset to want to make behavioral change and you're in manufacturing, so that's probably one of the prerequisites, then this program is for you. So to me, you have to have a passion and a desire to want to expand your leadership toolkit. And if you do, I don't care what generation you are, because we cover all of them. I don't care how old you are, because we cater for all the different ways that people learn. And so I don't know. Did I answer anything there? I'm not sure.
No, that's great. So have you been connected with WIM at all, the Women in Manufacturing organization?
I'm definitely looking at getting more involved. I know through Christina and also Alexis here in Colorado with that local chapter. So I'm definitely looking to get more connected this year, 100%.
I will, because I know Allison, who's the founder of it. So I'll connect you directly with her, because you might actually be a good guest for her podcast, hear her story. And they are having a Men as Allies conference in Clearwater, Florida in February. that you might want to take a look at. I think they have a virtual option. I might be misspeaking there, but I'll send you the link to that. But this would
Great.
definitely be a great topic of discussion for any of their conferences or summits, I think. So I'll connect you with Allison too, and then I'll send you the link to the Men as Allies conference, because this is their first year doing that. But I think one of the important characteristics of being an ally is being able to adapt, because it's been so male dominated for so long that some guys are just kind of a little awkward or uncomfortable adapting their leadership skills for women that might be working under them. I don't know if you see any similarities to that, but I have had conversations with men where they're like, we thought everything was fine and we promoted her, and then she quit within 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, did you check up on her and see if she needed anything? Well, no, we thought she was doing great. And I'm like, she probably thought she was doing horrible because you weren't like having a conversation with her about like how she was doing or updating her. So it's kind of funny to see that like there is some miscommunication there, just because guys think differently than women and vice versa. So I think that, but I do want to give you a chance to talk about your book, What Makes a Great Coach. And I still have to go on Amazon and get that, because that is one of the books on my list to read. So can you talk about what inspired you to write this book, and how do the principles within it really apply to manufacturing leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So What Makes a Great Coach was born out of a brief moment. I tend to have these moments, right, where Roger Federer, arguably one of the greatest tennis players in the world, was walking from the tennis court to his helicopter. I had like 30 seconds with the guy as he accidentally turned around and I was there. It was one of those freaky moments. And I just said, hey, in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what makes a great coach? And his answer really surprised me. I thought, I don't know, I think this was 2014. I was expecting something around technique or tactics or knowledge. And he said, someone who listens. And I thought, there's something in that. Hence, then I started my podcast, the Coaching Podcast, where I interview one sports coach and one business coach every fortnight. And then I started asking this same question in 1 to a maximum of 3 words, what makes a great coach? So my podcast organically started creating this incredible data on what are the commonalities of what makes a great coach. And I interviewed over 500 coaches. 10 of them were former world number ones. I had over 105 business coaches, different sports coaches, not just tennis. Tennis was the predominant one back in the day. And then I thought, there's something in this that more people need as it relates to leadership, whether you're a sports coach or a business coach. And I synthesized the data into the top 10 practices. So they're not chapters. I call them practices for a reason, because listening is a daily practice. It's not easy to listen, especially after we've all had long, hard days, and then you've got to come home and listen again. So I think that the practices are really important in modern day leadership. And of course, within the 9 modules, I combine listening with empathy as an example as one of the modules. So that's 2 of the practices as an example. Performance under pressure taps into the resiliency piece. Communication taps into the curiosity piece. So all of the 9 modules within the Emerging Leaders program actually are reflected in the book. So the book is a little bit of a guide as well. It's a support resource. There's an audio version, of course, as well. And really, it was a labor of love. Took me many, many years. Many times I thought I was never going to finish it. But I'm so glad I did, because that day, back to when I met Christina at the zoo, I literally just printed my first copy. It was like my one and only copy. And I gave her the copy and said, I've just written my book. It took me 6 years. Not that she knew that back then. And it was wonderful to be able to share things that are important, that it's not only just me, of course, interviewing great coaches. It's me living and breathing these principles. Like decision making is massive. It's empowering decision making in someone else is so easy to do. even somebody who you think, they're new to the organization, you could still give them two choices. Hey, do you think we should run the machine this way or that way? Boom, boom. Give them a choice. And if they fail, they'll remember, hey, it's better to do it this way, right? So empowering decision-making is so, so important. Yet so many times it's just that traditional top-down telling people what to do. Like you said, even with your son, a great example of what's the next generation coming through. They want to be more collaborative. They want to be a part of the process. They want to problem solve. And you can only ignite problem solving if you come from a coaching lens cap. If you come from a managing lens cap, eventually that traditional approach, you will lose people left, right, and center. So, and you won't have a business without people, as we know. So anyway, what makes a great coach? Yes, really appreciate. Thank you for the shout out, and I hope it impacts people.
Have you throughout your journey working with manufacturers, have you seen any connection with former athletes who might be in current leadership positions? What is it about athletes that really benefits the manufacturing industry? Because I talked to another former athlete, and he had a list of skill sets, and I just wanted to hear your insights on that to see if there's any similarities within your answer, because I think that is the pool that we're completely missing out on, aside from a bunch of other groups of people that we're not targeting for this industry.
I'll get you the answer in a minute. One of the first things I do in companies is I ask people about who was the person who impacted you when you were a kid. So was it a teacher? Was it a coach? Was it a parent, family member? And I can't tell you how many times people say, oh, actually, it was my baseball coach, or it was my softball coach, or actually there was a teacher, that was part of the band. And, this band practice was so awe-inspiring. And people in the room don't even know that about others. Like they go, what? You played saxophone in a band? Or you played softball when you were a kid? I didn't know that. So that's the first thing that I think sometimes is really interesting, that there's so many people that do have these backgrounds that people don't know about. So that's point one. But the 2 points that athletes bring, and I alluded to it earlier in this interview. One is self-improvement, continuous self-improvement. How can I be a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? So, and at the highest level of sport, which is definitely where I've spent a majority of my years, it's the 1%ers. It's the 1%ers. On the manufacturing floor, when I walk into a space, if I see crap on the ground, I pick it up. I can't help myself, right? Because I want the space to be clean for my workshop. I want everyone to feel a part of it. If I need the feng shui to be right, I arrive early. There's no way I rock up for a workshop at 5 minutes before the hour and just wing it. That's just not in my nature, and because of the background as an athlete. And I think we should look at all avenues to tap into recruiting people into this wonderful world of manufacturing. But that's a great idea. And they're my answers, the 1% and the self-improvement.
For women specifically, because I want to bring up Brian's comment real quick. Love it. Coaching is way more about listening than talking. All the coaches that I loved playing for were really great listeners. The ones that were not, I quit the team because I couldn't stand it.
Well, there you go. There you go. It's the same in leadership, manufacturing.
I'm not going to deal with this the rest of my life. No, thanks. I do want to ask you specifically about women. So what advice would you give for women who really want to step up their game in manufacturing and engineering? Because you did mention a few things about confidence and resilience and, imposter syndrome. I think I'm really trying to get rid of that, because I feel like if we stop talking about it, it won't be a thing. But it is something that affects both men and women, but I feel like I've been hearing it more from the women's side of things. So what advice would you give to women who want to move up in engineering and manufacturing? Because right now, 1 out of 4 leaders within this space are women.
So the one thing I think is super interesting, and we cover this in the Emerging Leaders program, is the confidence formula. So at a very simplistic level, I'll give you part of the formula because I can't give away everything, then people won't sign up for the course, right? But confidence equals time plus experience. Now, you can't short circuit time. You can't make Monday go any quicker than Tuesday or Wednesday. There is such a thing as obviously quality time. So learning, say you're part of an organization that does value its people and you're getting good experience, that's time. But the other one is something I'd highly recommend, especially women do, and that's stand on the shoulders of others that have come before them. So the experience piece is who is in a position where you want to go. How can you reach out to them, ask them to buy a coffee at their convenience, and see if you can pick their brain and add one thing that resonates to your leadership toolkit. So what you're doing is you're short-circuiting time by standing on the experience of those that are in the position of where you want to be. For example, right before this interview, I was on the call with a leadership coach in Fort Collins, Colorado, right? I spent an hour picking her brain because she is exactly where I want to be when I'm her age. That's where I want to be. And she gave freely of her time. I made sure it was at her convenience so she could pick whatever. I don't care what time I have to wake up, right, to get on that call. But that's an example of me taking then a page of notes and what's one thing that I could add to my toolkit today to help me to get to where I want to go. So that's an awesome confidence formula, obviously, applies to everybody. And I think it's especially important that we support women. Women supporting women is important. And male champions of change, men that see that talent. We need them as allies to be able to make a difference to not only the numbers, but also to the anecdotal experience of being a woman in manufacturing or being a maven. Being a maven in manufacturing.
Being a maven. That's why I picked the name. I love just because it's an expert or connoisseur, and it's just a powerful word. I love it. Well, Emma, I do want to thank you for, tuning in all the way from Australia. This has been a wonderful conversation. I am so glad that I met you at Engage, and I'm really excited to get your book and read into it because being a leader, it's something that I want to strengthen my skill set in because I'm technically naturally an introvert and I never expected to ever be a leader in anything. It's just kind of like played out that way. So now I got to hone in on those skills and become more confident. But I do want to give you a chance to ask our audience a question. So if you had one ask for them, what would that be? If you don't have a question, maybe a call to action for them as well. I'll give you a choice.
Yeah, the call to action would be, if this conversation has ignited your curiosity, then please check out the link that is in the show notes to the Emerging Leaders program. It's really, I'm passionate about it. I want to see it be a continuous part of what the NTMA offers. That's why I came on this show. And of course, if your company is looking to create a coaching culture in the workplace, please check out coachmem.cc. And I'll leave people maybe with this thought that effective coaching is not what you say, it's what they hear. It's not what you do and not what you show them, it's what they see. The value is in what they experience that makes them want to be motivated to be the best version of themselves in manufacturing. And that all begins with the adaptation of communication, curious, open communication.
I love that. Well, thank you, Emma, for joining us all the way from Australia. If you were in the comment section, thank you for tuning in to this Mavens of Manufacturing episode, the first one of 2025. We do have another episode coming up on Friday the 10th, so you get 2 in 1 week, which is exciting. So be sure to tune in for all of the promos coming out about that. I hope you guys have a wonderful Monday, and I will see you guys later in the week. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye.
This episode of Mavens of Manufacturing has been sponsored by Z Ink Solutions. Z Ink Solutions. This isn't your grandmother's copywriting service. We provide copywriting and copy editing services that provide impactful text and memorable storytelling for a variety of brands and industries. Contact us today at zincSolutions.com. That's z-inksolutions.com.